in the fourth quarter in almost every game that they've played. They play hard. They're selfless. They move the ball. They cut hard. They play well together. And they kept coming at us. And they kept coming at us. And at times we had breakdowns on the defensive end in our coverages. Their physicality, I felt like on their defensive end against us took us out of our flow, particularly in the second half.
Obviously, you guys needed to adjust without Caitlyn too. Just is there anything you could pinpoint with the offensive issues today?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, not having any points in transition, is one that's obvious. I mean, Caitlyn is really good at finding rim runners, getting the ball up the floor. That's one we got to be better there. Not relying so heavily on dribble handoffs and on ball screens. And I know we talked about this pregame, feeling comfortable getting to our off ball actions. I mean, that's still a growth process for us and a growth edge for us. You can see when physicality happens or defensive pressure picks up, it's like we revert to some old habits, settling for one-on-one, settling for jump shots, settling for dribble handoffs, instead of trusting the process of moving the ball and of playing in some off ball actions. And, on nights that we don't hit shots and we struggled from the floor, and you got to give their defense a lot of credit for that. They kept us uncomfortable. They kept pressuring us. We've got to be able to rely on our defense. And there were times where it was really good. And there are times where it was really good and then we didn't finish the play and we gave up an offensive rebound, or we were really good for, 22 seconds and not in the last 2 seconds. But it takes being really good all the time, and it takes finishing plays.
Aaliyah was 4 or 5 too, but she seemed to not get as many touches as she usually did. Was that defense from the Mystics, kind of Caitlyn not being out there as well, or just how can you get her more involved?
Yeah, I think probably a combination. Certainly she gets so many of her touches in the 2-man game with Caitlyn on the floor, and it looks different now without Caitlyn on the floor. Making it a point of contention to get her touches on the block as much as in the 2-man. I thought they did a really good job of changing bodies every couple of minutes and being physical with her and forcing her to defend on the other end as well with their post players. And we've got to be better as coaches of trying to get her in positions to be successful.
Staff, when the players were here, they had this kind of attitude of, we're not going to use Caitlyn's absence as an excuse for some of the breakdowns that happened on both ends of the floor. Is that the sense that you got to, or kind of what you tried to instill in them of the fact that these are issues that, regardless of whether or not she's on the floor, need to be cleaned up, or have been issues even when she was playing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have a deep team for a reason. We added quality depth in the off season, and our ability to collectively step up and give a little bit more has to be there. Certainly, we're going to look different. With not just what Caitlyn brings from a straight shot making standpoint, but facilitating standpoint as well. Our pace was different without her on the floor. I mean, there are so many things that she does outside of the obvious for our team, but. And as I said before, it is an opportunity for us to grow. And the defensive miscues, the defensive breakdowns, the fouling, unnecessarily. I felt like there were too many fouls at times where we were forcing Washington to hit tough shots. And we've got to live with them making tough shots. They're pros, right? But what we don't want to do is compound that by fouling or breaking down when we get a good defensive stop and giving up, offensive rebound putbacks, taking bad shots that lead to runouts. I'd venture to say, I can't remember how many fast break points they had, but I'll bet they got 4 to 5 layups just on our poor shot selection. Those things have to get better, and they have to get better every game. And I feel like we've been a little bit stagnant in our growth area in those.
How would you describe the impact of Sykes on both ends tonight?
I mean, Sykes is just a player. I mean, she's tough. She's got a good feel for the game. She understands, when to attack, how to attack, the way she gets downhill. She's got a toughness about her on the defensive end of the floor. She's a really great leader for this young ball club, and they play like she plays, with that toughness, with that swag. And she's been a huge impact for them.
Coach, is there anything you think the WNBA, the league, could do to better protect the safety of stars like Caitlyn and other players when it comes to some of the rough play, intentionally rough play in some cases? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I don't feel like there's any more intentionally rough play than there is in any basketball game, men's or women's, really. Obviously, I mean, obviously, I think we can get better in certain areas as far as how we call the game, consistency with how we call the game, protecting. We've been made a real point to protect airborne shooters on the perimeter. I don't think we do as good of a job at that near the rim. Are we going to say that we want a free flowing offensive game, or are we going to have tough grind out physical games? And whatever way it is, the players will adjust and coaches will adjust. But we can't have it be one way one quarter, another way another quarter. So I don't think collectively as a whole the league has to step in and do something. I just think that there has to be some improvements in certain areas.
What would be the main one you think, if you could just pick one top
Are you trying to get me fined again?
No.
Because I did just get fined.
Coach, obviously Caitlyn spends a lot of time before lots of games, signing autographs, things like that. Why was it important to her to, I think your social media team said it was 12 minutes she was out there signing, the full length of the court. Why was that important to her on a day when she's, not playing? And, why did she feel the need to sort of, still make her presence?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for Caitlyn because I think everything, decision that she makes is personal to her. But Caitlyn was that little girl that watched this league. These players that are playing in this league right now, most of them grew up dreaming of playing in the WNBA. They've only known the WNBA. And when you are that little girl who eventually gets to live out her dreams, you want to empower the next generation of players. You want to give that hope to the next little girl that's in the stands or little boy that's in the stands to accomplish their goals and their dreams. It might be sports, it might be something else. But the way that you approach being great, the way that you approach the work, the way that you approach things from a humility standpoint, all of that stuff matters. And when you've been someone who is living out your dream after sitting in the stands watching your heroes, you give back. And that's my assessment. I'm not speaking for Caitlyn, but that's what I see in her.
What did you make of the atmosphere in Baltimore today?
Yeah, it was great. I thought the fans were great. I thought they were engaged. It was a great turnout. So it was really exciting. Thank you.